You know, I said before that one of the big reasons why more investors don't get involved in owning their own apartment properties is because of bad information that they've got in their head somewhere. And you know, I've mentioned the stories of Uncle Joe owning a property and having the tenants screw him over, or a friend of a friend's brother used to own a 4-room flat and you know the tenants destroyed the place. And you know, so I think a lot of people, when they equate apartment ownership, number one, think about some of that bad information that they may have heard about. That's not necessarily true, because a lot of that tends to be embellished, and you know. But the other one is most people, most of us in here anyway, we've probably grew up and lived in an apartment property at some point in time. Whether it was your parents growing up, maybe it was your parents, or maybe your mom, your dad, or maybe you lived in it. So, you know, a lot of us in here have got experience in some ways of living in an apartment for a period of time. You know, it's college or trade school or whatever. So, you know, then we tend to kind of think about our environment there and some of those things we heard that gets in some people's way and actually pulling the trigger and getting involved in something. And what I told a guy the other day, and I actually sent an email out to our group the other day about this, is, you know, you are at one of the best times in history, and not maybe the best time, but one of the best times in history, with low interest rates and properties cash flowing like they are, and opportunities out there to own. There's so many opportunities to own apartment communities now that you never had before. Okay, what are you going to tell your kids, your grandkids? Well, why you missed out on this? What were you doing? I mean, what excuse are you going to have? Because the opportunity is real, and it's there, and it's right in front of us. And it's not like we can't see the information, the writing on the wall here, right? I mean, we know the trends. We know what's going on. So, I mean, what are you going to do? But, you know, to your question, you have, you've got that thinking in the way that I've talked about before in some of our experiences. The other thing is a lot of investors think they're doing something when they're not doing something. So they think reading a book about investing in real estate is doing something. They think watching content or videos maybe on YouTube or other places is doing something. They think that going online and looking at properties for sale, apartment properties for sale, is doing something. And there's a fine line here what I'm talking about. Yeah, you are doing something. And it's always a good idea to get more knowledge, be a smarter investor, know a lot more before going into a project that you might own. Sure, you got me. But a lot of people replace taking action and owning their own properties, be it passively or actively, with reading about it, with watching videos about it, with looking at stuff online and properties for sale. I mean, I can tell you stories of investors I've run into, dozens of investors over the years that fit in that category. I mean, one guy I'll tell you about that immediately comes to mind, and this is a great guy, very polite, always had nice conversations. The guy's name was Merv. Okay, so Merv would call me, I mean, once every 2 or 3 months, and want to talk about an apartment project that, you know, either our company had for sale or a project we had available that he may have an opportunity to invest in. And I mean, 3, 4, 5 times a year, we're talking about a property. We're sending him information. He's looking at the reports. And there were many occasions where he inspected the property too. I mean, there were some occasions where I was with him inspecting properties and looking at the properties. I mean, over a 4 or 5 year period, the guy never ended up doing anything and then just decided not to do anything, period. I mean, so this guy spent 4 years, actually over 5 years, just looking and reading and watching and inspecting, thinking he was doing something. He didn't do anything. And that's a problem a lot of people have. I mean, we've got thousands and thousands and thousands of people that subscribe to us, get our emails, you know, watch our videos, those kinds of things. And the small fraction of those that actually take action is telling. So it's, some people just can't get moving forward. They think they're doing something when they're not. And you know, that thinking is really, I would say, the two biggest reasons why people don't get involved in apartment projects. A lot of people think it's risk, and that's not the biggest reason. I rarely talk to people about risk. That's really not it. It's really those two things, and I'd say those are the biggest.